you just mentioned the Netherlands and the whole COVID situation,
Yes.
and that has majorly impacted Eurovision.
Oh.
Obviously, it got cancelled for the first time.
Ever.
So that's ever. So that was clearly something major. But there's also been other things that happened like throughout the ages.
Yes.
Like for example, like the Yugoslav war,
Yes.
and then there was 9/11
Yes.
and the Berlin Wall, and everything happened in. There's been so many historic moments
Yes.
throughout Eurovision. And how do you think that affected the contest, or has it affected the contest?
Yes, it did. It did, actually. And funny you should bring up the Yugoslav situation, because obviously in 93, Bosnia, Croatia, and I think it was Serbia were the first three in. That was their first year,
Yes.
right? And that's
It
big.
was.
That's a big thing. And I
Yeah.
remember because Fazla, who were traveling over to participate from Bosnia, they had to come. They actually had to come out of a war essentially, and they nearly didn't make it.
Yeah.
And so that's was such a big thing. And as you may or may not know, during the voting when they contacted Bosnia, it was a very emotional moment. The whole of the stadium erupted, and I think quite often Eurovision shows its support for other countries because of that and how we feel. If I remember rightly, the Berlin Wall is the it's the late 80s kind of thing.
Yeah, I think 89.
Time, yeah. And I think people were open to everything that moves in and how it went. And I think
From that moment on, countries started joining.
yes, and you see more and more people involved in it, and they feel more a part of what's going on in the world. And I think Eurovision often tells the story socially as much as it does politically, as I'm always saying that. But I think you can't ignore what's happening in the world events because
Yeah, true.
and I'll guarantee you this year there'll be some conversation or some event around the Ukrainian situation, and everybody has very strong feelings about that, and therefore it will be reflected on how people respond. It's hard not to. It's hard
true.
not to respond. It's a human condition to respond to somebody's suffering, change. There was an optimism when the wall came down, so that affected how people saw the whole thing, and the way to display it, weirdly, no matter what you think about it, through music, through even the representation of everybody being in the same space.
Yeah.
If you think about it, there are people representing themselves who are still, at these competitions, and quite often, their countries don't necessarily get along. But they're on stage.
True. They're on stage, yeah.
And it's like a big.
It's wonderful.
It is a wonderful. It's a one place where you can just put that aside.
It's a ceasefire.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a truce. It's a no man's land, you might say.
That's
but
right.
It's an important part, and I think it essentially shows people, because the majority of people in those conflicts, they just want to live their lives. They don't, and I think in a way it's important that happens.
That's also why I feel like countries shouldn't be disqualified because of their political stance.
Yes,
things.
I understand.
Because that's something that doesn't have anything to do with the artist.
No, it doesn't. I feel I tend not to get involved in online debates, or I'm not very political in the sense of how I represent myself as a person. I have my opinions, but I don't generally put them out. I'm inclined to agree with you. I think music transcends it. I don't think it's up for us to make decisions. It's different. Somebody's coming in and telling you how to live your life. That's a slightly different thing. But I think that it's a very difficult situation this year. It's very difficult. But I think I think people just want to get on with their lives, and music should allow you to do that. The creative side of things, you should be outside of that.
Yes.
Having said that, I do know that music is often very helpful in regards to expressing cultural situations or political situations. However, I just feel the Eurovision Song Contest is not the place for that.
It's not the place for it.
That's what I think.
Yeah.
But I don't really try to get too involved. But it's hard not to feel pain for what's going on at the moment, or for any moment in time, in any conflict. It's not, and the Ukrainian situation is very strong at the moment, but Syria is the same. There's lots of Palestinians. There's so many places you could get into where you need to be. It's not a space you want to be getting into, because I am not qualified to talk about that, and therefore I'm not going to talk about it.
I feel the same. I feel like it's a kind of frowned upon not speaking out about political situations on the internet.
Yeah.
But I sometimes just don't know what to say, and I just don't want to say, and I don't want to give my uninformed opinion about things.
I'm inclined to agree, and I think social media, it's like a wonderful thing for me. It's a wonderful thing that we can all keep in touch. However, it's not a fun place for me to be mostly. I look at it and I go, do you even understand what that's about? Do you even know what you're talking about? And it's too easy to do a knee-jerk reaction on it. Yes. A knee-jerk, and probably mean it well enough at the time, but it doesn't necessarily help situations.
I've said so many things I cringe about when I read it now. I'm like, oh, I was so uninformed, and I thought I knew what I was saying.
Yeah.
But it was just from my point of view.
Yeah, and it's that I'm all for opening out and being in
and
the
making
world.
Mistakes is okay.
Yes, but still, I think, you know, it's easy to make some comment, and if it's uninformed or people are unhappy about it, the difficulty then is you're not in a good place, and you may be coloured by that, but you also may affect other people, and that's not really a thing I want. That's not where my life comes from. No. I'm a nurturer, and I think if there's a way you can help, excellent, but it's not always a case of me going on and saying, oh, I disagree with this, or down with this stuff. You know, it's not how I want it. I never wanted to be negative. I can be acerbic with my humour, I can be all of those things, but the truth is I want people to win at life, and it's not for me to get involved in those situations. I don't want to be a part of that, a negativity or even fighting the great fight. There are many ways you can help, and I would rather do that.
Yeah.
You know, that's just my own opinion. But Eurovision to me is such a unifying thing. That's what I would want. That's how I always want it to be. Yeah. You know, so maybe I live in some la la land, but I'm okay.
No, but Eurovision is a la la land. That kind of distracts us from all of that.
Yeah.
And we don't need to be involved all the time. You can care about people and care about situations without constantly having it on your mind. People are allowed to have fun.
Yeah, no, I agree. I totally agree with that. It's such an important part of who we are as people. You know, the humanity of who we are needs to come out. And I think sometimes there are very few platforms where you can be in competition with it, but actually speaking as an entrant for 2 years and being around entrants over the years, even though we want to win, generally speaking, we all want each other to win too.
Yeah, we're all in this together.
Yes, very much so. It is very much about that. Do you understand? And so Eurovision didn't change in the I don't know how many years was it between one and the other, 27 years or whatever it was, some ridiculous amount of time. I want to kill myself. But basically, you know, it was quite, in the length of time it took me to go back to Eurovision, it didn't change, even though lots of things changed about Eurovision. The essence of it was the same. People still were rooting for each other. They were celebrating each other's cultures, celebrating each other's music, even their humour, even their whole sense. Even if they didn't like the entry or if they didn't like the thing, it wasn't about that. It's, you know, it's about wanting the best for everybody doing their thing. And I think actually that's no bad thing in life. I think the more of that, the better. You know, it's just, I don't know. It's just how I feel about it. And so therefore, that's how I want my life to be seen. I don't want it to be seen as somebody who went out and told people how to feel about things. It's not important for me. You know, it just isn't. There's plenty of people way more qualified than me to do that. And those who aren't qualified still do it.
Yeah, that's true.
So good luck with that.